Welcome to Forest.chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode, we're talking with Sharon Rose about living simply. Sharon has always been close to the land, growing up on a farm, and even travelling, tending gardens and that sort of thing throughout her life, and finding that a very healing process. Welcome to Forest.chat, Sharon.
Thanks, Paul, and great to meet you at the Bunbury Health Expo just recently.
Yes, that was one of those shows that we both got to go to. It was a great show that we had there. Sharon, we talk about living simply. What actually is living simply?
I guess it means different things to different people. To me, it means walking gently on the earth. There's so many things that we can do. It also means detaching from consumerism and convenience, which seems to be driving us to a time when we stop thinking and we just accept ideas and things that have been planned for us. And in some cases, we buy or we keep things that we don't actually need. So I suppose in a nutshell, living simply is the way my ancestors lived on the farm and how I grew up as well, growing our own veggies and being close to the land. I think that a lot of farmers are regarded as well off, but actually might be asset rich but cash poor. Everything goes back into the land to keep it going because the job of a farmer is to provide food and fibre for the community.
So, farming is definitely a critical thing that goes on within society. The scope of farming can actually go way outside of just being living simply. You talk about care for the land. That seems to be a very important part of how you see living simply.
Yes, it has taken a long time to actually accept that agriculture is just another system. In my case, my family were really connected to the land and they left big habitat trees. They left areas of natural vegetation for the flora and fauna around them. So it's interesting how much the world has changed in that time. But I do agree that living simply is about taking care of our own needs as far as we can, like even putting in a rainwater tank means that we don't have to pay for our water bills. So living simply is really taking back our power. Gardening is a great start, and I was rent 15 years, and I've lived in the UK or east in Queensland as well, and gardened and had small pockets of my own little wilderness to take care of. So there's just so many ways that we can connect to nature. That's a big thing. So much of the world is actually designed to separate us from nature, but we're part of it. We're not separate. We're not apart.
The urban environment seems to pull people out of that natural environment.
It definitely does. And one of the best jobs I've had in life, I've had many jobs. I've had one of those weird lives where worked a lot on farms, worked in various things from a cleaner to truck driver in the Army Reserves and a lot of factory work and other things as well. But one of the recent I had was working in land care, and I run a project called Pollinators Aplenty. So that was really encouraging people to build corridors of pollinator around their dwelling space, no matter how big your area is. And we know that lawns is a recent thing. It actually comes from the European practice of being so wealthy that you can afford to grow a lawn instead of feeding yourself. So previous to that, small gardens were huge areas of wilderness, huge habitat areas. So there's lots of ways that we can reclaim our right to be part of nature, even if we are in an urban areas. There's community gardens that you can be part of. Most schools have a Stephanie Alexander program now, and I totally agree with the concept that a gardener in Chicago who's quite famous now, and his saying is that cities weren't built for people, they were built for commerce. And that's exactly right. Again, it's designed to keep us away from nature, and it's our right to be part of that, to live simply with nature.
We've had hundreds of thousands of years, however long man has been walking the earth, and it's only in the last 100-ish years that people have actually even started to move away from the land as the essential thing that provides their livelihood. It's really quite interesting that it's been such a thorough washing away of the land from people.
Absolutely. And when you step back and have a look at it, it's actually very, very clever. Different weapons, different things that's been used to separate people from the land. I mean, obviously, the Indigenous story is just so horrific and horrible, but that same story has been repeated the earth over. Obviously, so terribly recently in Australia, but everywhere on the planet. I guess when I read the Anastasia books, it helped to put it all into. It was the missing part of the jigsaw really, because I wondered how and why that all happened. But as I say in the books, Anastasia tells us that Egypt was the first where that happened, and the people were tricked into destroying their tropical home, which has been confirmed by science as well. That's the Sahara was once a beautiful oasis, but the people were tricked into destroying it to make monuments, which still exist today. And unfortunately, the Sahara is now sand. So Egypt was the first to fall, and Russia was the last. From the Vedic culture, a culture of kindness and wisdom. Actually, it was also a culture of great wisdom, and Anastasia mentions the wise men. They were also mentioned in the Bible, but the travelling wise men were the people who went from village to village, teaching the wisdom beyond what the children were brought up, and they were brought up in a time of knowledge and togetherness, as opposed to the brokenness in all of us today. So many of us carry wounds from the past. You know, war has had a terrible thing. People carry trauma. My dad was in the Second World War, and there's things that they never talk about, but they carry every day, and that carries down the generations, sadly.
There is talk about the 7 generations of trauma and how it just carries on from one generation to the next. And it's a very difficult thing to get over simply because of what it is as trauma. And while there are some efforts to do that, there needs to be a massive sustained effort in order to reverse 7 generations worth of trauma. That's a lot. People don't always understand that it actually carries on from generation to generation.
Absolutely. And I think it is about stepping back and seeing with a non-judgmental eye and just seeing what's gone on before. It's about raising our vibration, and that's obviously hard to do if we're in a traumatic time. But from my own life, I know that that can happen, and healing is a lifelong thing. But again, getting back to nature, we know that nature is beneficial. Just the green is beneficial to us. We know that walking under trees are beneficial for us. You know, the tree puts out photosides, which is a healing for the tree, but also healing for us. The sounds are beneficial to us. So there's so much we can do to raise our vibration and let go of those layers of trauma. And it's interesting that they talk about the 7 generations of trauma, because in my time of the Native American philosophy and people, that they talk about making wise decisions down to the 7 generations. So won't that be wonderful to get back to that, to come from a place of wisdom instead of driven like we are in today's society?
Yes, there's some very big things going on there. We might talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the question of meaning. Now, let's talk about the next question, which is, what does it take you to live simply?
When I was renting for 15 years, there was a lot of snails around, so I couldn't even have a proper garden. But I had things growing in pots. So that to me was still giving me nutrition. So if I have edibles growing, it means that I don't need to go to the shop, even if it's just some herbs. they're in the garden or they're in a pot. So that way I cut air miles, I cut packaging, and I know that there's no pesticides or chemicals in that produce. So that's number one. We can do so much for our own health. And back when King Charles used to grow his own tomatoes, and he was ridiculed for talking to his plants, but we know that there's divinity that runs through all living things. So plants listen to us, and there's scientific proof as well that they react kindly to when they're treated kindly. So there's so much more in nature that we forget about sometimes. So growing your own is a big one. Also, if we have beauty around us, flowering plants or trees with beautiful foliage, that uplifts us. So if we surround ourselves, no matter how small, our beings are uplifted. That way that we're healthy. So it lessens the need to be reliant on the medical profession. That's another way that we can live simply. There's just so many concepts. A big thing though is stepping back out of need for comfort and out of the need to be dependent on consumerism and convenience. We know now that things like cold showers are actually really good for us, and even Kate Blanchett has cold showers. We know that Sarah Wilson's written a new book. She's the author who made famous I Quit Sugar, and her new book is actually all about living simply. She's done a lot of research just lately, working with Oxford University, other universities, also Indigenous people like Tyson Yunkaporta Porter and his book Sand Talk. In a nutshell, that's what she's found, that humanity in the future will be living simply. And that makes total sense to me, because I think a lot of us realise that humanity is going totally the opposite way to what we should be.
It really doesn't feel very natural when you're in a concrete jungle, in effect. There's no comfort
No,
in
there's
it.
not. There's not. And it goes back to that comment that cities were built for commoners, not people. It's really shoehorning people into tiny areas. Yes, it's all about squeezing people, and I mean, almost doesn't care. It's just a big system with lots and lots of wheels, and I think living simply is really stepping back from being a hamster on that wheel. It was for me.
You must demonstrate some of your inner strength in doing this, because you talked about convenience, and convenience is a massive thing for a lot of people ending up in the commerce system.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of things that I do without, but I don't need them. Like I can use an egg beater instead of a bar mix. There's a lot of things that I realised were actually costing me in maintenance and upkeep. Like I don't have a tractor. There are times when I need a tractor and to do the heavy lifting and etc. But I've been able to work swap or to hire a tractor for a day. So there's things that we can get by on a lot.
Your characteristics that enable you to do what you do.
Persistence is a big one, definitely persistence, and realizing as well that again with commerce, convenience, and comfort, we're tricked into thinking that money is time and time is money, but that's actually a trick, because nature has a different time. So it's almost like we need to reset our priorities and connect to the time of nature, because when we harvest a peach from a tree, a whole year for that tree to grow it. And that's definitely opposite to walking into the shop and finding a peach there, like day after day after day, because it's been fed from all over the world to provide a peach wherever we want. So living simply is definitely about eating what's in season, and when I have the peach or plum harvest, like recently, that's the time, the same as when I grew up. So that's the time to make your plum jam or preserve your peaches, so that you do have fruit out of season, but it's preserved. So there's so many things that I guess I've been able to employ from a youngster growing up on the farm and weaving in all those lessons that I used to do and learnt from my family. There's so many lessons that we can teach others who have been separated from this way of life. So I guess that's my aim.
It's good for people to reconnect.
Oh, absolutely. And I did have put a post out a little while ago. I issued a challenge because so many people are separated, so many people are lonely, but there's so much wisdom that we all carry as well. And especially, the older generation. Like when my mum grew up, well, for example, horses were still, it was at the crossover time between horses and cars. And that's only in the last 80 years. So she used to drive, a plough horse around. And when I grew up, Dad had stock horse and I had a stock horse when I grew up. And now, unfortunately, horses are considered to be a thing for the wealthy, which is a little sad. But it's interesting how times change. And again, we all carry so much wisdom. And so the challenge was to engage with the older people in your family and just go and have a conversation with them. You'll learn something.
That's a very important part of passing on the generational knowledge.
Absolutely.
I did speak to a cake maker, and they learnt by being in the kitchen with their grandma and their mum as a
That's right.
toddler.
That's how we learn.
They were in there helping
Yes,
out, making
that's right.
cakes. Yeah. So it happens in all aspects of life. And if the current generation doesn't know it, they can't pass it on. So if you've missed out on that, you really need to do what you can to reconnect as soon as you
Mm.
can.
Yes, and there's so much that we can do by researching as well. I keep saying that to people that there's so much to learn about the natural world. If you want to plant flowers or if you want to, if you're looking at different foods, then go research. There's so much information out there. It's never too late to go and learn about the natural world, how to build a habitat in your garden or how to create your dream, really. It's the age of information and we need to use it.
We've heard what it takes, Sharon, to live simply. We'll have a break now, and after the break, we'll have a look at what it means. We've had a look at what it takes, Sharon, to live simply. Now, let's have a look at what it means. Sharon, what does it mean to you, your family, or the community that you're able to live simply?
Thanks, Paul. For me, it's getting back to my roots. So this little dream of building my homestead is actually a dream I've carried around since I was 5 years old when I realised that girls weren't going to be farmers. So it's just wonderful to finally achieve that and to be able to live a simpler life. Like sometimes in the past, my life's been totally crazy and it made me sick. So that's a huge relief, mentally, physically, not to walk in those shoes anymore. Every day has a sense of well-being, just that connection with nature, and there's so many things that just smile in the garden or in the natural world. And I love that concept of the Native Americans that they refer to the natural community as all our relations and that we are caretakers and it's our decisions in life that affect all of the other creations on the planet. So living a simpler life is walking a better way, but walking with dignity, walking with purpose, and bringing back the knowledge that the ancestors had. And the ancestors in all cultures have much to offer. It makes me feel better as well, knowing that I'm able to be almost self-sufficient in a few ways how I live. I'm able to help my family as well with harvest, which is fantastic. So every time I go and see my mum and my sister, I'm able to bring some of the produce from the garden. And in the bigger community, if more people live this way, then I can guarantee they'd be happier. Those that are ready, because not everybody is ready to disconnect from being comfortable and having the convenience and right at their doorstep. And that's the big thing, to realise that all of humanity have free will. We have the free will to change or not to change. We have the free will to heal or not to heal. And I know how hard it is to heal in traumatic circumstances. It's not easy, but living this life, being close to nature, it does raise your vibration. And time is approaching on the planet. You can see that we're approaching a critical mass when more and more people are starting to step back. So I'm very grateful of that. I feel that this is the answer, living simply, but with purpose and with with knowledge, and to me it's the gives meaning to life.
You mentioned there about how there's more and more people wanting to get back to nature. I read in the paper just yesterday about how the Commonwealth Bank, I think it was, they track how many people are coming to and leaving the city, like shifting into the city, buying properties, or shifting to the country and buying properties. And that's playing out, that more and more people are buying those properties into the outer region areas, even more so at places like around Harvey at the moment. It's a hotspot. And it was portrayed almost as though these people want to move out of the city, but they're still prepared to drive all the way back into the city for work. It was really quite a strange perspective on the story. People moving further and further out of the city, potentially being pushed out because the machines of commerce are no longer working in their favour. Then it's quite strange that they look at that as being, well, they're still connected to us. But there's definitely been a move of people out of the cities into regional areas.
Definitely, and definitely since COVID as well. COVID really had a global gardening boom, and it reset a lot of people's priorities in life. COVID was a terrible human tragedy, but environmentally, I think there were good things that came out of COVID. The land issue is something that needs addressing. I'm not sure how we'll do it, but I know that we will. And there are different places around the world that have been able to address that issue, because for people who want to live sustainably on small areas of land, I mean, I know from my own upbringing that the bigger the bigger the area to take care of, then the more headache it is, and obviously the more cost, which is why dependence on monoculture, pesticides, herbicides is so big, because to work that area organically is going to take a lot of people. But in places like America, Russia, they do give away free land, small 1+ hectare lots. Australia did have a Homestead Act itself as well, and obviously the Group Settlement Act, which were both quite cruel on people, because the government expected people to be able to provide milk for the UK in areas where it just wasn't possible. You know, people were provided an act to clear the land that wasn't cleared at all. So many people. There's actually a film called Milk and Honey, which graphically about the cruelty of that time. Some people suicided, many people left, but many people also stayed on for the group settlement. But I feel that somehow there'll be a way the government will be able to provide small areas of land for people to live sustainably. We definitely need to address this issue. Living in the country doesn't mean just buying a bigger lawnmower. To me, it means stepping back from dependence of convenience and consumerism. It means taking accountability over your own life and being able to use the land to live a simpler life. Not just use the land, but to connect to the land, to be a caretaker of the land and all that you share that land with.
That's interesting that all that you share the land with is very important as well, isn't it?
Definitely. There's lots of flora and fauna who share this land, and there's so many ways that we can even build up the soil by dung beetles and black-headed earthworms which tunnel vertically, so we can include more flora and fauna to help us care for the land, as well as provide wildlife corridors or pollination areas, so that, for instance, bees have food all year round, or, for instance, the monarch butterfly has food, like the milk thistle around Nana.
Yes, it's an intricate web.
Berries, yes.
The land issues that you mentioned earlier, was that about having space made available, or was that about the land being destroyed or damaged?
We need small lots being available because so many shires don't, in agricultural areas, you can't subdivide under 100 acres, which is problematic because if that was a blank canvas, potentially you could house at least 50 families to live self-sufficiently on that area of land. When I lived overseas, and I really admired the crofts that I saw in Scotland. And okay, so yes, it's a much higher rainfall there, and they have volcanic soils, so it's much newer soils than our sandy coastline and loam soils here, which are left over from the last ice age. So Australian soils are actually the most depleted soils, oldest soils in the world, but there's so much we can do. The trick is having smaller land lots available for people who do want to live self-sufficiently, and that's not always possible at the moment. But like I was saying, that there are places in the world where governments make free land available for people who want to live self-sufficiently, and there's things that they've got to fulfil. So, for instance, there's a 5-year time limit where if they, inside that 5-year time limit, they need to build a home, they need to begin their orchard, they need to establish a vegetable garden to live self-sufficiently. And if those things haven't been started or up to the standard required, then they need to leave, and that lot will pass to someone else. But to my way of thinking, there's, again, when I lived in the UK, I really admired how much they can produce in a small area, and it made me realise how much land is being wasted here. It's a huge population there, and you can feed a lot of people. Most of the food in the world is actually produced on small farms. Not many people realise that.
So going small is actually a way of getting ahead.
It is, absolutely. It's not acknowledged by the big agricultural wheels because being smaller means that we're not a customer. We're not their customer. And, you know, as we know, so many of the chemical companies are reliant on consumers.
Yes, it's amazing. A lot of ownership is very centralised, and there's a lot of ownership of the seeds and that sort of thing that people use to plant those crops. So there's quite a big and difficult to escape from if you're a farmer that needs to meet specific price points for a marketplace. There's a lot of challenges in achieving that.
Oh, absolutely. It's so sad. I mean, you know, the agricultural industry is really being squeezed, and I've spent a lot of my life as being part of that industry, in working for different people in different sectors, and it really is the middleman who makes the money. It's really sad. Yeah, as an illustration, I was only young when we were growing loo on the farm, known as alfalfa, and Dad would set the irrigation lines because it's a summer crop, so he would be up at night changing the irrigation lines. So, you know, the cost of diesel was extraordinary, and that was just to keep the pump going for the irrigation, and then there was raking, baling, and we made it into chaff later on. So there was all of those processes that went into producing loosened chaff. We then took it up to Perth by truck, sold it for $6 to the big stock feed companies. They had it in their warehouse and sold it over the counter for $12. So they did nothing to the product at all. And that is a familiar theme right through farming. Yeah, I feel it's tragic actually, and the farmer they just don't get acknowledged for all the work they do. I mean, okay, so the living simply concept and the small farm concept, it's only a minority thing at the moment. This is just very new, but I feel that in time to come that farmers will have a lot to do with being mentors, with showing people, with teaching people how to be self-sufficient. And yes, I really feel for the farming community, and my connection to the land is from generations of that. So yes, I don't have an answer to agriculture apart from I I feel strongly that we can work together. Humanity needs to work together, not apart. Togetherness will make us strong and find answers.
Yes, united we stand, divided we
Yes.
fall. There's a lot of meaning in living simply, as we've heard. Now, let's have a break, and after the break, we'll look at how you do it. We've heard what it means that Sharon is able to live simply. Now, let's have a look at how you do it. Sharon, if someone wanted to live simply, how would they go about it?
So it depends on your focus. That might be part of joining a community gardening group. It might be part of joining a land care group. And everything you do is putting tools in your toolkit. So for me, my life goal was to return to the family land and build my homestead, my fruit trees and veggie garden, help me to live a simpler life. But there's many ways we can do this, and it can be as simple as starting with a pot of onion chives on your windowsill and learning about nature. Spending time in nature is a big one. We know that the sights, smells, and sounds of nature is really beneficial for us. So I recommend start making mind maps. Where do you want your life to go? What is your driving force? What are your aims? Be clear on what you want in life, and then figure out your plan to get there. I had so many jigsaw puzzles of mind maps and lists because it was actually a 20-year process of being able to have my right to belong to the land. Although there was a 40-year process before then of dreaming about it, and most of the jobs I had, I learnt something about the concept of living simply. But wherever you go in life, you find that you start drawing experiences and drawing knowledge and opportunities to you. So when I talked before about raising our vibration, when we start working with, you might say, with the lighter emotions, it's amazing how that changes in life as well, because good things start to happen, which seems really strange, but it seems like now more than ever on the planet, there's good things are not what you see on the news, but there's so much happening around the world, and it's heartwarming to see. It really is.
From a practical perspective, it's making a plan up for working out what it is that you want
Definitely.
and then working out which bits of the puzzle you can actually make simpler in your life.
Absolutely. And we often forget that everything starts with thoughts. Like every invention, every building, everything you see around us has been created by thought. And it's really essential to define those thoughts, to hone them and be clear on what you want in life, and then realize that your thoughts become your actions, become your present, etc. The same as what Gandhi said many years ago, but it's very true. It really is about think, plan, act. Definitely. And spend a lot of time in the planning process. Like, yes, I'm still building my homestead, but I designed it solar passive, a hemp building as well, so less need for heating and cooling. All of those things help me live a simpler life. And if I can do it, anyone can. I'm not young, I'm a woman, so there's been a few things to overcome there, but yeah.
You're working on it and you're doing what you know you can do.
Absolutely, yes. Yes, and that applies to all of us. Some Some of us have little dreams, some of us have big dreams, and there's many ways that we can work together as well. The agricultural regenerative.
Regenerative
Yes,
agriculture.
that's right.
Yes.
Thank you. That's getting quite big, which is fabulous. And the organic industry is actually the fastest growing agricultural industry in Australia, which is fantastic. And yes, there's so many ways that we can create a simpler life.
And you've got a program as well, is that correct?
I have, yes. So we met when I had my little stall, the Anastasia Plan, at the Health Expo, and it's interesting, isn't it, how things sort of lead on to other things and link up. So you never know what's around the corner. So yes, and I have a YouTube channel, the Anastasia Plan, of the same name, and also on Instagram and Facebook. So it's really passing along the lessons that I learned as a child, because again, as a child, and I used to be in a brass band, and we had a connection with some Perth kids who were billeted on the farm, and until then, I did not realise that everybody did not know that eggs come from chooks and milk comes from cows, because I used to milk the milk cow, and that was a foreign concept for them. So weaving in the lesson I learned is my little contribution to see if we can create a change. And yeah, we all of us know something that others don't. So yeah, it's my little platform to make a difference.
Thank you very much, Sharon, for being on Forest.chat. All Forest.chat listeners wish you all the best with your future endeavours.
Thank you. Likewise, Paul.
Thank you. You've been listening to Forest.chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode, we've been talking with Sharon Rose about living simply. Remember, there are 4 ways to get involved with Forest.chat. Share the domain Forest.chat with your friends and family and people you meet. When you go to Forest.chat, you can sign up for the emails and receive advance notice of the episodes. You can listen to the episodes at forest.chat/episodes. If you do something that other people might find interesting, book an interview at forest.chat/interview. If you want to support a small business, book an advert at forest.chat/advert. I'm looking forward to joining you with our next guest. Until then, enjoy making it happen.